Hello everybody, my name is Hunter, aka the Serial-Hobbyist developer, and this is my second dev blog for my upcoming game, RoboMonk The Path to Peace. Join me as I fail and stumble through making my first game, and hopefully I can inspire and show you guys that nobody knows how to do this stuff and we're all just making it up. That being said, let's get into it. In my last video, we extended some of the art that Cert had done, so you see that here. So one of the big problems when looking for art, right, if you're not going to do it yourself, is you got to make sure you have a matching style. So as I began searching for art, I kind of kept flipping back to this picture so I could see, and then sometimes I would even take little cutouts and drop them in here just to see if the colors kind of match. So for this week, I focused mainly on finding art for my enemies and stuff, but again, needed to match this specific art style here. And so I found this work by Emcee Flesher, who is pretty awesome, and he extended a lot of Cert stuff, so it has a very similar artistic style. And so I'm going to show you this one. The top left corner was the first one I found. I really like this crawling animation thing for a moving enemy of some kind. But you can see there's lots of other art here, and I'm just kind of pick and choosing what I feel like matches both artistically and also from gameplay standpoint. So for here, I love this. And this actually inspired the main mechanic for what I'm going to use on level 1, which we'll talk about for future videos, but this is going to be kind of the main boss at the end of the first level. Found some cool explosions. But see, and this is something I want to point out, right? This is done by Emcee Flesher as well, and this is a really cool boss concept, right? But it really doesn't match the style, right? I want kind of a robot-y futuristic thing, whereas this is kind of like an alien monster. And so, like, while you could argue that maybe this one looks kind of like an organic thing, like a bug, I think it can kind of look like a robot in certain contexts. Whereas this, you're never going to make that feel like a robot type thing in the context of a game. So this would be an example of like, hey, this is really cool, but the artistic style here doesn't match. So maybe I want to make a boss that's like this, but I need to either make my own art or find art that more matches closely with the overall artistic style. I mean, if you guys have been on Steam before, I think you guys have all seen when art doesn't match. You've played like really cheap indie games where the art doesn't match and it feels amateurish. So this is something to spend a lot of time on. Not only is it difficult to kind of find art, I spent probably a whole day just looking for this stuff. But you got to make sure it matches. So I just wanted to really highlight that, and then I also wanted to give credit to Emcee Flesher. He developed all of the art that I'm going to show for the rest of the video. After finding the art I wanted, the next step is to animate and create our first enemy. And so what I have here is the downloaded sprite sheet from Emcee Flesher. And you can see here is the crawler. But one thing you'll notice is he doesn't look up at all. And I thought this was pretty important for me because I want him to be able to shoot at angles. I want him to be able to shoot up. So I had to extend the art, as well as there's no fire animation here, right? So I wanted to be clear that, hey, he's firing. So the first thing I had to do was extend this. I did this in 3 columns intentionally. What you'll notice is the legs in all 3 of the columns are consistent. This is so that if I'm switching between animations, I can literally just go to the next leg in the list, right? Like if I'm here but now I want to look up, I can go to this and now I'm standing up. So I wanted each direction to have the same 3 leg sets. So literally what I did was I just took his original Emcee Flesher's original robot head, erased it down, got the legs, and just copied and pasted that a bunch of times, and then went through and drew an up and a side. With an enemy created, the next thing we need to do is create some kind of projectile for it to shoot. And so that here is the basic bullet class. It's just made up of a sprite and a collision object. You'll see the sprite has all the different bullets directions it can fire, right, as an option. And so the hardest thing with this is when it's told it can release, right? It's given a direction. That's the direction it's going to fly off. It uses that to determine what angle to rotate it at, and then it rotates the collision box and selects a sprite based on that angle. Um, very simple, and importantly, when it's created, the enemy will make the bullet a child of the main scene. That way it doesn't have to think about it at all, and it can exist in its own reference frame in the main world. And last but not least, just handle when it runs into stuff. So right now it just kind of deletes itself if it hits anything, and if it did hit the player, then it will call the hit function on the player. Okay, with an enemy now that is able to shoot a projectile at the character, now we can actually work on the key mechanic to the game, which is this absorption mechanic. So my first thought is that I needed to have all the bullets have like a momentum property. So when it came into contact with the player, if the player was in the absorption state, then it would take that momentum, and that would essentially be a launch off for its next jump. But I also wanted to make sure the player could see when it was running out of time, like the absorption state was about to end. So I created a animation that's 1 second long. So he gets redder, 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 and then once he runs out of time, he stays red until he touches the ground again. And so I think this is a really nice way of letting player know, like, hey, you're running out of time, and they can jump. So with that visualization ready and the animation ready, went to code. So we created an absorption function that passes whatever object it's absorbing. And basically every object that can be absorbed is going to have this momentum property, which is going to add to the absorbed momentum. And then I'm going to run this collided object.absorbed. Now for the simple case of a bullet hitting him, that's not too interesting. In fact, in the bullet class, it's just pass, right? An empty function. But you'll see key mechanics for defeating the first boss and stuff down the line are going to make a lot of use of this function. But I'll show that to you guys next time. But for now, let me show you guys this working in the game. There's a demonstration of the absorption mechanic in the game. You can see that the player jumps up, goes into the absorption thing, and then he falls. So we can see here the crawler is blocking the way. We can't get through, and we can't jump over. So this will be the simplest case of when the absorption mechanic should be used. And so the goal will be for the player to move the crawler here, then to jump above him, absorb the bullet, and then get over the wall. You can see we get his attention. Hey, look at me. Ah. Now he's trying to line up his shot, and we get over. Finally, we worked on the long neck enemy. I want to show you here, I actually used 2 animators, and the reason I did this because I had 2 sprites, but I wanted them to overlay each other. Earlier in the video, I said there was a better way of doing the fire animation beyond just making a sprite frame for each possible way the fire goes off. The way I chose to do that is I created this second sprite and this fire animator, and in here I have right fire and left fire, and then it actually has a script attached to it that based on some state variables in the long neck, it actually switches if it's on the left or right side. And then part of the script is also adding in changing the visibility and the horizontal flip, right? So if it's left, I don't want it flipped. If it's right, I do want it flipped. It's visible at first and then turns off. And so that makes it so that I'm able to jump back and forth. This script repositions it. This script makes it visible and flips what direction it is. And then right here at the end, this is really cool, and this is the functions. And so I want to show you, I got stuck on this. You're going to go to add track, call method track, and you're going to select where you want the method to come from, right? And then you're going to go insert key, and then you'll select the function. I spent an insane amount of time actually trying to figure out how to just insert the function. It was a little embarrassing, but I couldn't find it on YouTube anywhere, so here I am putting it out there. That is the simple steps to actually add a function. Finally, though, I actually did something else really cool that really saved me a lot of time, and I think that if you guys are doing lots of different animations or something, this could save you a lot of time. So if you see, the goal with this one is that he actually goes up. So you see his head going up, right? But there's a couple things with this. One, the collision box also needs to change size. So you can see that's the collision box, that blue thing back there. And just due to the way Godot is, when you change the extents of the box, you actually have to reposition the center of the box so that it moves up with it. Um, and so I couldn't think of a really good way of doing this, so I started out manually doing this, and I was like, this is freaking tedious. And so then I did some reading, and I found out this tool script. So what a tool script does is it actually runs all this stuff down here when you're in this window, right? So that's really powerful. And if you really stop and think about that, that means that some of the examples in the documentation that you can use is, say you want to have a trajectory of a bullet, so you can have it visualize that for you while you're setting up the level. Um, in my case, what I did though is I created this nice for loop that actually created each one of these tracks for the left and right side, and moved the collision box to the right location for me. So you can see this saved me a ton of time. And what's great is if I want to change, maybe I want this to have 25 different levels instead of just the 12 it has now. Like I can go in and add to this here, and it'll be able to quickly generate it, and I don't have to spend a bunch of time on it. And the only thing you have to do to make your scripts do this is you add tool right here at the top, right? And then there's more to it. In this case, the script, all it does is do this tool thing. But if, say, you had another script where you had something that should happen during game time and something that should happen in the developer menu, right? There's if statements that you can put in here that basically say, hey, if we're just in the development menu, run this code, else run that code, right? So I'd really encourage, if you guys are doing redundant or mechanical tasks, never ever let yourself do that in code, and try to find some solution around it. And for me, that was this tool script. And so I think it's a really good tool that everybody should look into. The last thing that improved from the crawling enemy to the long neck enemy was the correct separation of the AI from the state. And so again, this long neck script here, this is the state. The only things in here are state variables and things that the long neck can change. And you see, like, for example, the current height of the head is one of the state variables, so how tall I am. And so what's really great is here in the state machine, I say, hey, based on whatever height I am, play that animation. And see, this is really simple in that in the AI portion, nothing is changing those variables beyond calling a function saying, hey, fire, hey, do this, right? And then internally in this here's where the actual states are changing when I do that. So if I'm searching, I'm going to take this step. And that's everything. Thank you guys for watching, and if you're interested in watching me stumble through more attempts at making this game, feel free to like and subscribe below, and good luck on your endeavors.